In that case, whenever you're ready, I shall begin. Welcome. I'm Michael Schachter, the president of the Carolina Nature Coalition, and we depend only upon donations from those of you who attend our events. So if you like what we do, please donate. You can donate either online, go to our website, which is easy. It's carolinanaturecoalition.org. Or if you're here, there's a donation bucket over there. And we appreciate that because that's the only way we get funding. We got no corporate funding. We get no grants. Only you fund us, and we thank you. And I also want to thank Public Radio East for getting us on their calendar. I don't know how many people have seen us on their calendar, but they put us on our calendar every month if we get it in on time. And I'd like to thank of course, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of New Bern for this venue here, which allows us to do it both in person and online. I want to thank our secretary and technical guru, Tom Shoup, for his work. I also want to thank Connie Casey and my wife, Melissa, for providing the refreshments, also Egon. And I would like to thank Ed Toth for suggesting this here. And I'd like to also thank our board member, Barbara Molk, for following through on it and really getting this presentation, to succeed. So without further ado, I will let Barbara Molk introduce our presenter. Barbara.
Wow, I'm really excited to have this presentation. It's really important personally to me. Almost 2 years ago, my nearly 14-year-old granddaughter came to spend several weeks with us during the summer. And I wanted to do something that would be not only interesting to her as a 14-year-old, but meaningful to her. Of course, we all think our children and grandchildren are the brightest and the best. And of course she is, but I really wanted to impress on her that there's more than anime and videos. So we took a trip down to the Karen Beasley Turtle Rescue Center. And she was really impressed and touched. In fact, I was really surprised when she personally made a donation from her own funds. That's how impressed she was. So we're fortunate today to have the outreach coordinator with us today. She's a graduate of the University of Maine, where she got her degree in marine sciences, and she has a master's degree in secondary education, which she utilized by teaching for several years prior to joining the Karen Beasley Center. So I'd really like a warm welcome for our outreach director, Kimberly Escalante.
Thank you so much. You guys are making me nervous. Please let me know if you can't hear me or if I'm talking too fast. But as Barbara mentioned, my name is Kimberly Escalante, and I'm the education coordinator at the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Hospital. I feel very lucky to be in the position that I'm in. It had always been my dream to educate the public and people about the ocean and why it is so important, which is why I went the route that I did with teaching. I was a middle school science teacher for 8 years in a private school. Love my middle school kids. Then in Connecticut, and then I decided to move down to North Carolina because I just loved the area. I wanted to be closer to the beach, and I wanted more of an opportunity to be able to pursue my dream of doing marine science. And so very luckily I got to do that. So thank you all for your very warm welcome here. This is my first time in New Bern. So I haven't been this far up north yet. I've only been here just under 2 years. So don't ask directions questions because I cannot answer them. Yeah, I put this slideshow together to give you a kind of well-rounded type of what our hospital is, what we do, teach you a little bit about sea turtles. And then after I have some items to show you as well as I'm going through the presentation. And then afterwards, you guys can come up and you can see them. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. I love answering them. And yeah. So I don't know if you can see my slideshow yet, but our mission at the Canberra Sea Turtle Hospital is to conserve and protect all species of marine turtles, both in the water and on the beach. So sea turtles, yes, live most of their time in the water, but female sea turtles do come up onto the beach on land. So our job is to protect both of those types of turtles, to rescue, rehabilitate, and release. So our final goal is always to release these sea turtles. Our goal is not to keep them for any type of educational purposes or anything like that. We want to release them to be able to go back out into the ocean. It's also our mission to inform and educate the public regarding the plight of all sea turtles and the threat of their extinction. So me being here, also the fact that I go to schools and invite schools to our sea turtle hospital as well are other ways that we educate the public, along with doing public tours throughout half of the year, I guess. And then we also provide experiential learning. So we have interns from colleges all around the country and sometimes the world throughout the year for 3 semesters. And we also have junior internships, Barbara, for high school students that may want to come down and learn about sea turtles, how to educate, and how we rehabilitate for 2 weeks long. I am going to actually move this up since I'm looking downwards instead of at a screen. Oh, okay, perfect. Do you want me to keep going? Okay. Just checking. So a little bit of history and background about how the Canberra Sea Turtle Hospital started. In the 1970s, a woman named Jean Beasley and her daughter Karen were renting a house on Topsail Island, and they saw a sea turtle nesting on the beach. At that time, they did not know that sea turtles were nesting in North Carolina. They called the state. They had no idea what they were talking about. And so they made it their goal to want to help protect the sea turtles that were nesting. So in 1990, they formed what's called the Topsail Turtle Project, which is our volunteer organization that goes and looks for nests and protects the nests. And then unfortunately in 1991, in the early 30s, Karen passed away, her daughter passed away due to leukemia, and asked her mom to do anything she can for the sea turtles. And they were both kindergarten teachers. They did not know anything about sea turtles, but they made it their life's goal to learn anything and everything about sea turtles. So in 1997, Jean was able to open the first sea turtle hospital, which was actually on Topsail Island. It was only 900 square feet long, big. So it's about the size of a 2-car garage. She had tents outside. Did not have the opportunity to see the old hospital. But then in 2013 is when we moved to our current location, which is in Surf City. So we're no longer on the island, we're on the mainland. And it is 13,000 square feet, and it is still not big enough for the number of turtles that we are getting these days. So if you have never visited the Sea Turtle Hospital, though, I highly recommend you coming down and taking a tour of our facility. It really is beautiful, and there's a lot of upgrades that are going on to this day. So this is like by the numbers. So we have cared for over 1,300 sea turtles throughout the years. We admit on a 5-year average, we admit about 85 turtles per year. Although I think that number might be a little old, seeing as we admitted over 250 turtles just last year in 2024. Quite a lot. And we have over 120 volunteers at our specific hospital. For the volunteer organization that's walking the beaches, we range from anywhere between 53 and 187 nests per summer, with an average of 108, and we have over 300 volunteers doing that part of our organization. For education, we get 40 to 60,000 visitors per year. And so throughout the year, we also have 35 interns, 24 junior interns, 500 plus sea turtle campers, 6 to 9 vet students, and 3 vet residents per year. And now we also do a lot of on-site, off-site, and virtual programs reaching over, this says 800 plus students a year, but I can promise you, since I've been there, it's been much more than 800 students per year, since I have about 700 students coming in one day or 2 days for education days 2 times a year. Okay. Does anybody know how many different types of sea turtle species there are in the world? Anybody want to guess? 10, close. Closer. 7, yes, lucky number 7. There are only 7 different types of species in the entire world, although some scientists might fight you on that because there are hybrid species, but in total, there are generally 7 different species in the world. Here in North Carolina, you are a very special state, and you can potentially see 5 out of those 7 different species. All sea turtles are threatened or endangered, all 7 species. They are reptiles, which means that they breathe air, they lay eggs, and they generally breed in the Caribbean, Mexico, southern US, and other tropical waters. So the 7 different species of sea turtles are the loggerhead, the Kemp's Ridley, the green, the leatherback, the hawksbill, the olive ridley, and the flatback. The 2 species that you will not see here in North Carolina, one is the olive ridley. They are only found in the Pacific Oceans, and the flatback is only found in Australia. The other 5, hawksbill, leatherback, green, Kemp's, and loggers, you could potentially see here in North Carolina, but the hawksbill is pretty rare. We have taken care of a hawksbill at the Sea Turtle Hospital before. The Star Center, Roanoke Island, did take care of a hawksbill last year. And leatherbacks are actually very common in North Carolina, but we just don't see them so often because they are so far offshore. And they are a very large species. And last year on Topsail Island, we did have our first leatherback nest, which was a very exciting time, but also kind of scary because they don't normally nest here in North Carolina.
Can you stop now?
I'm sorry, yes, sure. We're good.
I have seen sea turtle nesting sites on the Outer Banks, and I've noticed that if they get overwashed, the hatchlings die. So how much overwash can they withstand? I guess they suffocate. What happens?
It really depends, honestly. It depends on how many times they're overwashed. It depends on how long they're underwater for. Depends on what the angle of the nest is at. There is a lot of factors on overwashed, for example, and I'm using this as a personal example because I'm not like the super expert of the nesting portion, but I did find a nest over the summer from volunteering, walking the beaches in the summer, and my nest did get overwashed a couple of times due to the high tides, due to the the hurricane and the tropical cyclone, but because my nest was up at a higher area on an angle, they were able to withstand the washover, and it was a very successful nest in the end. So there's just so many factors to tell on whether or not and like where they are. We do, yeah, but we're only allowed to move so many nests through every season. From the state. I'm still on it. Okay, great. Okay, perfect. So here's your different species up there. The 7, the loggerhead Kemp's green, leatherback, hawksbill, olive, and flatback. The 3 species you're going to see the most common are the loggerhead, the Kemp's Ridley, and the green. So for most of the rest of the presentation, I'll talk more about them since those are the ones you'd more frequently talk about. But of course, if you have more questions, let me know. So a little bit of turtle vocabulary is the top of their shell is called the carapace. I'm going to walk and show you one here. So the top of their shell is called the carapace. On top of their shell, you can see they have little plate-like structures on them. Those are called scutes. And in the inside of their shell here, actually, you can see their spine and their ribs are actually fused to their carapace. And then you have underneath them, like their bellies, we call that the plastron. And so they fit like this. And sea turtles are not like other land or aquatic animals. They cannot hide in their shells. They don't have a lot of space there. So this is their super shield. It's the only thing they have to keep them surviving from predators. And then this is just one of the ways on how you can identify sea turtle species. You would look at the number of scutes that are on their carapace. You could look at the where those scutes on the side are touching, if they're touching the top part of their carapace. And also you would look at the 2 prefrontal scutes, which are the 2 scutes on the tops of their head that's showing in the bottom left-hand corner of the presentation. So we'll start with loggerhead sea turtle because loggerhead sea turtles are the primary species here in North Carolina. They're the primary species that nests here in North Carolina. They're the 3rd largest species. They get to be about 250 to 350 pounds and about 2.5 to 3.5 feet. We have a 310-pound sea turtle at the Sea Turtle Hospital right now that you can come and visit. When they lay a nest, it's called a clutch. And they will lay anywhere between 4 and 6 clutches in one season. And every single time they lay a clutch, it can be anywhere between 60 and 160 eggs, but the average is 120. Their favorite foods are conchs and whelks. So loggerhead sea turtles have a big, wide skull or head that have a lot of muscle in them, and that's what allows them to crunch down on those hard-shelled animals. And they regularly strand here in North Carolina due to what's called DTS, or debilitated turtle syndrome, which is a really fancy word for we're not really sure what's wrong with the turtle or why they stranded, but we're going to take care of it to what we know about them. So our DTS kind of season should be potentially starting soon. The green sea turtle is the 2nd largest sea turtle in the world, or the largest hard-shelled sea turtle in the world. They can get to be about 400 or so pounds and 3 to 4 feet. They also lay 4 to 6 clutches and about 120 eggs. They do nest here in North Carolina as well, just not as much as the green or the loggerheads. And they do nest usually a little bit later in the season. Their favorite foods when they're younger, they're a little bit special in a way. They're omnivores when they are younger, which means they will eat both fish and plants. And then when they become adults, they're strictly vegetarian. And so when they're juveniles, they're going to eat fish and jellyfish and the seagrasses and things. And then when they're adults, they are strictly eating seagrasses and algae. Because seagrass and algae are going to be their primary species, the primary food that they eat, that food has chlorophyll in it. And that chlorophyll actually tints their fat a little bit green. And that's how they get their name green sea turtle, because they're not quite green in these pictures, or as you would see in pictures online as well. And they are the most common species to strand in North Carolina. So that's the most common species that we get at the hospital due to what we call cold stunning. And I will talk a little bit more about cold stunning in a little bit. And last but not least, of the species we mostly take care of is the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. They are the smallest sea turtle. They get to be about 70 to 100 pounds, or about 2 feet. They are the most endangered species of all the species. And they nest a little bit differently than the other two. They actually nest in what's called an aribata, which means arrival by sea. And so they nest during the day, and they nest in very specific areas where they kind of all come up onto the beach at the same time, nest at the same time, and then leave. So from what I hear, it's quite a view, and I would love to be able to see that one day. But they only lay about 2 to 3 clutches per season and about 100 eggs in their nest. And their favorite foods are crab and fish and jellyfish, like all of the sea turtles, and other mollusks. So clams and mussels and things like that. And they regularly strand in North Carolina due to fish hooks. So fish hook season is also one that will be starting soon as well. They like to get a nice quick meal, and usually you're using bait that is shrimp and squid and things that I really like to eat. So why do sea turtles strand? This is a list of all their, yes. Sure. Pretty much if a sea turtle is found floating, or if they're found washed up on shore. So sea turtles, again, spend most of their lives in the ocean. Unless they are nesting, you should not see them on land, or unless you're in Hawaii. When the Hawaiian greens are like the only population that go up onto the beach and bask in the sun. So they're the only ones you would naturally see on the beach during the day that's not stranded. But here in North Carolina, if you do see a sea turtle on the beach that is not nesting, it is stranded. So something is wrong with it. Cold sunning is the #1 reason. We also get turtles in due to predator bites, diseases, hooks, entanglements, ingestion of plastic, boat strikes, dredging, and more. So what is cold stunning? Cold stunning is pretty much a hypothermia for sea turtles, okay? They're reptiles, so they need to be in warm water in order to survive. Now, our waters here in North Carolina do get cold when we get those cold snaps. So when the water becomes below 50 degrees, they become what's called cold stun, and their bodies start to shut down. They stop eating, they stop moving. And the reason they do that is because they stay a little too long in North Carolina and don't swim south fast enough before the waters turn. Locally, we mostly get greens, but we can also get Kemp's Ridleys and Loggerheads. And occasionally we also admit them from other states such as Massachusetts. Cape Cod, anyone? You've got that hook in the state. Yeah, and so they kind of get stuck in that area. And then here in North Carolina, Cape Hatteras and Cape Lookout are the two of the top areas where we also find cold stuns getting stuck in that area. When we get a sea turtle that comes into the sea turtle hospital, we have a room that's called our isolation room, and it is a temperature independent room, which means that we can change the temperature of just that room, and we will slowly increase their temperature by 7 degrees a day. And then once their bodies are back to a normal temperature is when we will start trying to feed them, because if they're too cold, they're not going to eat. When they come to stay with us, due to cold stunning, they may also develop additional medical complications such as pneumonia and also osteomyelitis, which is a bone infection in the joints. This is a chart to show you our admissions that we've had since 1997 all the way to 2024 that we have a record of. Our highest number of admits in 1 year was last year in 2024 with 257 admits throughout the entire year. Last year was my first winter here, and which is nothing compared to Connecticut, which is why I moved here. And then this year I got to see snow on the beach. So, so yeah, in January at one point we had 103 turtles at one point at the Sea Turtle Hospital. It was a very busy winter for us, but you can see that we are overall, it's a gradual increase in the number of turtles that are being admitted to the Sea Turtle Hospital. Another reason for sea turtles to strand are shark bites. Especially when they're younger, they're more prone to shark bites. When they're larger, really the only shark that has the correct teeth to do that would be a tiger shark. But this is Frank Rubio, a turtle from 2021 that came in due to a shark bite and has since been released. They also can come in due to disease and illness. So the picture up there is of a turtle named Brooks. Remember I talked about the DTS, debilitated turtle syndrome. So when we don't really know what made them strand, a lot of times they're coming as a DTS because they've been floating in the waters for too long, and that allows barnacles, leeches, and algae and other things to grow on their carapace as they're floating, and that will weigh them down a bit. Yes.
How long would they be floating before that would happen?
It really depends on when you find them. So it's sometimes the way a DTS can work is that it gets caught in a cold snap. It kind of gets cold stunned, but then it warms up really quickly and then it cold snaps again, right? Kind of does that a little bit here. And so when if the waters warm up fast enough again, they kind of feel good enough that they're still alive, right? Then the cold snap comes again. They could still be alive and doing okay, but still just floating. And it really just depends on how long they're going to be out there for. Hooks. As I said, our hook season is probably going to be starting soon. Once a turtle comes to the Sea Turtle Hospital, every single turtle does get an x-ray. We have a large x-ray machine. The x-rays will tell us if they have a hook. If they come in with a hook usually on their mouth, we do also make sure to take another x-ray because sometimes they could have already swallowed a hook previously. If they come in with a fish hook in their mouth, usually we can remove the hook and release them later that day or the next day. But if they do ingest a hook, they have to stay longer to see if they might pass it, which somehow, surprisingly, they do pass them, or they have to get surgery. We also get turtles in due to entanglement and ingestion of plastic. These are both photos that are not our photos, but they are accurate photos that have been taken. But I will say that in 2023, in September 2023, we had a turtle named Howlite, and I guess I should put Howlite in this slideshow next time. Howlite came to us from Sneed's Ferry, so locally, and had fishing line wrapped around their flipper so tightly that it stopped the blood from flowing in their flipper, and their flipper looked like a deflated balloon. And unfortunately, due to that, Howlite had to lose their flipper. We had to amputate the flipper. Well, the vet did. But Howlite did have a successful rehabilitation and was released last January off of a boat. It's a success, but unfortunately that turtle did have to lose a flipper due to entanglement in the fishing line and other monofilament. And then we also have boat strikes. As I mentioned before, they do have to breathe air in order to survive, so they spend a lot of their time up on the surface, and they can come in with just specifically getting hit by the boat, blunt force trauma, or also by coming in with propeller wounds. When a turtle comes in like that with a large wound, we actually use natural organic honey. It's a natural antibiotic, antimicrobial, and anti-inflammatory. And so when they come in with something like that, we wash out their wound, and every single day until it is healed, we put honey on their wound for about 10 minutes, rinse it off, and then put them back into their tanks, which is a really amazing process to be able to see. So it's really great when you do get to see a turtle that comes in with a very extremely damaged carapace or shell, and they get to be rehabilitated and go back out into the wild.
They can replace their carapace, or do you have to
The
put something up there?
Some of the bones will regrow, but like if they're missing a piece of their carapace, it will not grow back. Unfortunately, they're just going to miss that piece of their carapace. So sometimes they need a little bit of a reconstruction surgery just to make sure that the edges of their carapace won't get caught on other debris and things that are in the water. And every once in a while, we get a turtle in due to dredging. So dredging, if you don't know, is pretty much when they need to replenish the beaches. And sometimes they will take that sand from the inlets or other areas on the bottom of local oceans, and they have a big tube, and it brings the sand up. And unfortunately, the turtles like to rest on the bottom, and they can get stuck in those tubes. So this is a turtle named Shamrock that came in due to getting stuck into a dredge. And you can see that little Shamrock was missing a lot of their scutes that they had to wait to heal and regrow. Before I go to the volunteer part of the Topsail Turtle Project, I just want to see if there were any questions that you had about strandings. Maybe give a little bit of a break. Yeah. He's coming with the microphone for you.
We have so many more rescues here the last few years. Is that because there's so many more getting hurt, or is that because there's so many more turtles because you've been fairly successful in replenishing their populations?
I can't say for sure, but there is a little bit of an increase in population from all of the protection of the sea turtles, but also the fact that people are more aware of sea turtles and their importance and protecting them and bringing them to a place like ours to be rehabilitated. It also could just be the fact that with climate change as well, the waters are warming, obviously, and because of that, they're warming farther up north. And so when those cold snaps come, they're coming faster. And so we get more of the cold stuns than we normally would as well, just because of that as well. So there's, again, lots of factors that like aren't fully studied on why we're getting more of them, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Do you do
Oh, sorry.
any banding or anything like that to track the turtles after they're released?
So before we release a turtle, they get weighed, they get measured, they get an x-ray, and then they also get a pit tag, which is a little teeny tiny, kind of like a tag you would put on your dog. And all that tag does, though, is give them their identification. And it pretty much just tells another place that that turtle has been rehabilitated before. So for example, 2 years ago, a turtle came in due to cold sunning, pit tagged them. We got a phone call yesterday that it restranded somewhere else in North Carolina again. But they don't usually have all the information, but they can potentially find the information to see why that turtle might be restranding.
Be right there.
Do you get do you get any resources or help from the state universities, the biology departments? Do they help you in healing or diagnosing or expanding your program?
Great question. So we don't have a veterinarian on site. Our veterinarian, Dr. Harms, is a vet at the veterinarian school of NC State. And so he comes to visit us once a month. In between that, when turtles do come in, we send him all of the information and he lets us know what the medical treatment should be. And then when he does come to visit, he brings his vet students, he brings his residents and things like that. But other than that, we don't do too much with the other universities. It's mostly with Dr. Harms as our primary veterinarian.
So that must be a real difficult situation for your agency, and you're not getting any public funds or government funds, and in this
I see.
environment, you probably won't anyway, but
Yeah.
would you like them?
We have improved our facility a little bit within the last few years, where we've been able to apply for grants, and those grants have been able to help fund for certain things to get upgraded in our facility. So right now, our sick bay has just been upgraded, so it's mostly fully a filtration system, which we didn't have up until literally a week ago. And our volunteers literally would have to like empty buckets and refill them 2-3 times a day. Now we have a filtration system in there and we're waiting for our big reveal. But part of that was paid for by a grant that was applied. And then the other half is money that we have raised through tours and education and, thankful third Tuesday in November and things like that, just by raising money. Mhm.
Just one.
Yeah. We do.
Volunteers that know how to write grants.
Our executive director is the one who is our primary source of writing grants. Volunteers are mostly they are taking care of the turtles. They are help educating about the turtles. They are helping protect the nests. We wouldn't be able to run without our volunteers for sure. But our executive director, Kathy, has been doing a great job of writing our grants and applying for them in order to improve our facilities. Yeah.
My question, from what you were describing, it seems like the sea turtles are migratory.
They are.
And do they have concentration areas in the winter, like down the Sargasso Sea or somewhere else?
The first few years of their life would be the Sargasso Sea, actually. So they are mostly spending a lot of their time there the first years of their life. And then later on in the warmer months, they're going down to, well, in the colder months, sorry, they're moving more south where they're able to forage for their own food and things like that. And then they work their way back up during the winter to either nest or during the summer, excuse me, during our warmer months. They are moving back north for mating season, for nesting, and potentially also foraging. But we don't have a lot of seagrass beds here in North Carolina for the green sea turtles to be foraging, which is why they move down south and we don't get as many of the large greens compared to the juveniles. Yeah.
I know you're a rescue and rehabilitation, but do you do any research, like tracking where the sea turtles go during the off season and when they're not mating? Do they go back to the same nesting ground where they were born to have their babies?
Yeah, so we don't specifically do research with the sea turtles like that. We haven't put satellites on sea turtles in a long time. You have to get a specific permit for that. But we are part of an organization or a research where with our nests, we donate an egg to the University of Georgia that is doing DNA testing. And so they're able to tell where the turtles are nesting, how often they're nesting, how many eggs they're laying. It's really amazing of what they're doing, but they started in 2010. So they are still continuing that, but they did find that a mother was nesting, her grandma was nesting, and she was nesting, her mom was nesting, and her grandma was nesting. And loggerhead sea turtles are not fully adults until they're 25 to 30 years old. So that means that that grandma that was nesting was potentially somewhere between 80 and 90 years old. So they are learning a lot about that because of that research, of that type of research that we're helping participate in.
How long does it take it from when the turtle lays the egg until the egg hatches?
I'm gonna get to that really soon, I promise. The nesting part's coming. Did you want to ask your question now? Mhm. He's coming with the microphone, hold on.
You had mentioned earlier that there is a limit to moving nests now,
Mhm.
and I know that's kind of a new thing, past few years anyway. Is that an arbitrary number for each beach, or do they decide how many can be moved based on the numbers in the
I
past?
think they go by a percentage of how many nests
Okay.
they're going to allow for the season, but don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's
should
it's
be
a
that.
percentage.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a quick, is there a reason that they limit you on moving nests? Years ago, there was not.
I think just more, they just want more natural nests, honestly, and they're doing more research on it, but I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't work directly with them. Okay, yes, I will keep going. Oh. Okay, so the first part was like the hospital. Now you have the volunteer the other part of the volunteering part, which is on the beach, the Topsail Turtle Project. That's the one that started in 1990, as I mentioned. And our nesting season starts May 1st and goes until August 31st. We have volunteers, bless you, we have volunteers patrolling 26 miles of beach on Topsail Island. So we have at least 1 or 2 volunteers walking at least 1 mile of beach every single morning of all 26 miles of beach, looking for tracks. In 2024, we had 104 nests with only 53 false crawls, and a mean incubation time. So what that means is about the time that it takes for the eggs to incubate from when they're laid to when they hatch was about 59.1 days. That was the average, and the average clutch size was 112, about 112.7 eggs, and overall we had 7,661 emerged hatchlings. So that means that they hatched and they came up out of their nest and left and went to the ocean on their own. So when they are walking the beach, they're looking for sea turtle tracks, which is what is the picture on the left looks like. They kind of look like a tractor tracks, but I don't know any tractor that comes out of the ocean and goes back in. But if you do, let me know. So they're going to come up onto the beach. They're going to dig their nest, lay their eggs, and then they're going to kind of camouflage their nest by digging it back up and go back out into the water. Once they find that nest, the volunteers find the nest, they're going to call a coordinator. They come to the nest and they do look for the nest to make sure there actually is one. That's how we know if there's actual nest there or if it was called a false crawl. Sometimes something scares the female and doesn't feel like it's safe enough for her to lay her eggs. So she'll go back out into the water and not lay her eggs. As I was mentioning before, if we do find a nest, we donate 1 egg and it goes to research from the University of Georgia. And it is all DNA of loggerhead sea turtles from Virginia down to Georgia, I believe. And it tells us which females are nesting, how often they're nesting, how many eggs they're laying, and things like that, because they're going to come up onto the beach, they're going to nest, go back out into the water for about a week and a half or 2 weeks, and then they'll go back onto the beach and they'll nest again, 4 to 6 times in one season. They are not eating during that time that they are nesting. And so once they're done nesting for the season, they're going back out into deeper waters and foraging for food to gain that weight and gain that energy for the next nesting season for them. Then once we do that, we're going to protect the nest using some wooden posts, flagging tape, and we also put a metal grate down onto the sand to help protect the nest from predators, including people. And then the incubation time is usually around 50 to 60 days. And once it gets pretty close, the volunteers are going to go back to the nest and they are going to create a ramp like that one, and actually even wider than that. So it keeps a nice smooth surface for the hatchlings. When the hatchlings are born, they are going to use the natural moonlight to go to the ocean, hopefully, or whatever the brightest light is around them. We're hoping is the moon reflecting off the water. And once they get to the water, they have to swim to the Sargasso Sea, which it can be anywhere between 30 and 50 miles offshore. So they're going to be swimming for about 3 to 5 days, nonstop, these little hatchlings, until they get to the Gulf Stream of the Sargasso Sea. And so we we'll create this ramp to help prevent them so that they can save some energy, right? So there's a lot more energy if they're running in the sand, going up and down into holes and around things, and also to keep the people away from the hatchlings. And then our volunteers also will go to any houses that have any lights on near their nest and ask them politely to turn their lights off until after the nest has hatched so that the babies do not get disoriented and go towards the houses instead. That's what a little hatchling looks like. And also this beautiful picture, if you want to tell them about the picture that you brought after of a hatchling that was going back into the water. But those are loggerhead hatchlings. And that's all I have for you.
Very good. Well, I do have one question.
Yeah.
We had visited Cape Lookout Lighthouse,
Mhm.
and after the turtles have hatched and left, some of the people went out there to check the nests to see how many turtles were born live and how many were still in the nest.
Mhm.
Do you know something about that?
Yes. So 3 days after a nest hatches, thank you, we do what's called a nest excavation. And so we go back to the nest, and the reason we give them that kind of 3 days is to give any ones that are lagging behind some time to come out of the nest themselves and go to the water. Then we'll go back 3 days later and we will dig up that nest again, and we will count how many of them hatched and emerged, right? How many of them hatched and got stuck in the nest. So live hatchlings, how many might have hatched and didn't make it, and then also how many eggs are there that were either non-viable or not fertilized. And all of that data goes to the seaturtles.org website, which is also where they're getting that DNA information with that research. So we do that as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to stress two things. One, not everybody lives at the beach, but you might know people who live at the beach. You might know children who are going to the beach. And I can't stress more than to not use plastic bags on the beach, not dispose of them in a way that they're going to get into the ocean. I always look around even at the rivers where we live here. And if I see plastic bags, and I say, it's headed to the ocean, because everything eventually does, especially from here. So I would stress that. And then recently, I believe that balloons have been banned from the beaches because people were in the habit of having celebrations of life or birthdays or weddings, and balloons were let go. And so I think that there is a ban on that too. And those are things that you can stress. And there's one more thing about donations. A very good friend of mine who worked with me in Emerald Isle on the Sea Turtle program had passed away. And in her obituary, she asked that all donations be made to the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Hospital. And that is an ongoing thing. And so anybody could do that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
Can you explain the display things you brought for us to look at, please?
Yes, I would love to. Can I do it from in front of the table though and talk loudly? Is that okay? Okay. I already talked about. Oh, perfect. I'll take this one. We already talked about these. I can pass these around, just don't open it. Highly not recommended. These are eggs shells from hatched sea turtles. So you guys can take this and pass this around if you'd like to. So that's what they look like after they've hatched. This is a rib bone, and in the inside of the rib bone, if you guys want to come up after to take a closer look, you can see it's very porous, and that allows them to be very buoyant. So when you come up, you can kind of take a look at it and feel it. It's very light, and that allows them to float better, to come up and breathe air. We also have up here a scute. And so those are the plate-like structures on their carapace. If you guys scratch your nails, unless you have gel nail polish on like I do, you should be able to feel yourself scratch your own nail a little bit. Sea turtles can feel that as well when you are rubbing them, or if they rub up against a rock or coral and things like that. So they are very sensitive to touch. And then, can you hold the microphone while I do this one? Okay. This is a skull of a Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. And the reason I know it's a Kemp's Ridley is because its jaw is pointed like this. Their eyes would go here, the nose here. And then this little hole here, you guys see that a little bit? See how tiny it is? Their brain goes there. Okay. Their brain is usually about, well, I guess a small marble for a Kemp's Ridley, but their brains are generally about the size of a marble. That doesn't mean they're not smart. They have better instincts than we do on some things that are natural. And then here would be where their muscles would go. If I brought a loggerhead sea turtle skull, it would have been a lot bigger, and probably 75% of their skull is that muscle for them to crunch down on the organisms that they like to eat. Thank you. And the last one is just another piece of another bone that you can see is very porous. Which, again, you guys are all welcome to come up. And I have my cards up here as well. We do group tours. So if you all wanted to come down as a group, yes, an organization, you can just email me and we can set that up for you to come outside of a public tour time. And then I also have some Save the Sea Turtle stickers for everybody if you all would like one of those.
Any other questions?
Yeah, like I said before, I did the beaches in Ghana, and you find out that they're very particular in the types of sand.
Yeah.
Coarser sand, I guess it's better airing. But the biggest problem to me right now is this question of ocean rising. Because for millions of years, turtles could deal with it because they had land behind it. But now behind it is development, and the dunes have been taken out. So we could be facing a question of extinction because of ocean rise.
I have an entire different slideshow that I could talk about for an hour, just about how climate change in general and other problems that our sea turtles are facing nowadays. And part of that is oceans rising, so they're losing their nesting areas or nesting beaches. If you've ever taken a look at where North Topsail is, they are losing a lot of beach there, so there's a lot less nest there. You can talk about how they're getting overwashed, like we were talking about before, which creates them from creates drowning. And then for sand, also interestingly, my favorite fun fact, didn't tell you. Wait. Okay. Sea turtles' sex is temperature dependent on the sand, which means that depending on the temperature of the sand will determine whether or not a sea turtle is going to be female or male. Okay. So if The sands are cooler, 82 degrees and below, they will become male. And if they are warmer, 84 degrees or above, they will become female. So we say hot chicks, cool dudes to remember that. Okay. And let me tell you, I gave my husband a tour for about the 4th time the other day, and that is still the only thing he remembers from my tours. So relating that to the sand that you're talking about, depending on the type of sand as well, what's being beached in and what color it is, what type it is, all of that can also change the temperatures of the sand, which can also skew the sex of the sea turtles. So with climate change as well, in the beaches that are getting hotter, in other warmer areas, they're starting to do more studies that the sex ratio are probably going to be more females than there are males. So protecting our nests here in North Carolina are super important because we still have sand that can be cooler and create more males to keep those populations growing. Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
What does it take to change the percentage of nests that you can move? Is there a law or something that needs to be changed?
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that for the survival, we're going to have to do some, given the rising of the rivers and climate change, we need to change that law or whatever the regulation, and let us know how we'll go help you.
Thank you. I really don't know. I really don't know what the best solution is. I would say that it's still in conversation, and it's something that our conservation manager is constantly looking at, and it's actually something that she's presenting while she's at the International Sea Turtle Symposium. So it's really just what they think is going to be best, if it's more natural, if it's moving, if it's whatever, but I'm not quite the expert on that part.
What are the predators that are out there? All animals or?
Mostly sharks when they're older. When they're younger, like hatchlings, and they go in the water, bigger fish, anything that's bigger than them could eat them, which is why there's that ratio of 1 in every 1,000 hatchlings will make it their first year, and 1 in every 10,000 make it to adulthood, because they have to survive 25 to 30 years to even make it to adulthood.
What about when they're just before they're hatched?
Ghost crabs, people, dogs, seagulls. I mean, before they're hatched, mostly I would say is it could be raccoons, foxes if they find the nest and dig them up, the crabs, dogs. And then once they hatch, you've got the seagulls, you've got the fox and the raccoons that might be waiting for them, the crabs as well. And then when they get into the water, you have a whole other thing of predators. So they're really fighting for their lives those first, quite the first early on in their years.
I have a strictly male question. Do the female, after she lays the first clutch and then goes out in the water to whatever, does she mate again and again for each clutch? Or is there just one insemination for all the clutches?
She actually mates with multiple males. And so their eggs are actually with the DNA of multiple male turtles each time, which is good for natural selection. Keeps it diverse, right? Hot chick, yeah.
Does the female hold on to the
eggs? Uh-huh.
Over a period of time, over her nesting period, and then releases it?
You know, I'm kicking myself right now as you're asking me that question, because a volunteer just came and asked me that question on Friday, and I ended up not looking it up, and so I don't know the correct answer to that.
I had heard it one time. I'm hope I'm saying it right. I don't know. You can go back and look it up.
Yeah.
That she actually mates several times, but holds on to that collection.
Yeah.
And then releases it in small numbers or large numbers, whichever, and through the season. And that seems to make sense.
It sounds right, but it's been a while since I read like the specific part of the that part of sea turtles. But you know what? Now that that's the second person in 1 week, I've got to look it up tomorrow when I get back to work for sure. It is a great question. Absolutely a great question. Adults always ask the hardest questions.
So that was related to what I wanted to ask you when there was a false start,
Crawl.
false crawl.
Yeah.
You said they go back, they don't lay the eggs and go back. Then do they still have those eggs and come back on land and lay those?
If they can, yeah. So sometimes we'll see those tracks, and like later on in the night she'll go back up on the beach again and try to lay the eggs, or maybe the next day. But there are some times where they can't hold them anymore and they do release them out into the water, and then unfortunately that clutch is gone.
So you said something about group tours.
Yeah.
When are those regularly scheduled?
So right now we're open for public tours Fridays and Saturdays, and we are slowly working our way up to opening for public tours throughout the summer. So next in April we'll be open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But if you guys were to plan a tour outside of public tour time, we can plan it pretty much almost any time outside of public tour time, and then you guys would come at a different time than when the public comes. Public tours, the times change as well depending on the day and the month. So, but if you wanted to come with a family member or grandkid or whoever, you can go on our website and you purchase tickets in advance on our website, and you can see online where we have tickets available. Yeah.
The Carolina Nature Coalition would love to set up a tour this summer.
Yeah, that would be
We
great.
usually, we do something every month, and we would love to probably during the summer go down and have a tour there. But also, speaking of donations, we have something for you.
Okay.
We want to thank you so much for this wonderful presentation,
Thank you for having me.
and we have a little donation for you. I don't know if you can see, it's in a turtle envelope.
Very cute. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
And hopefully this will help out.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Definitely. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. I will keep some stuff up here in case you guys want to come up and take a look. And if you have any other questions, I'll stay for a couple extra minutes. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Just to repeat, if you like what you see, you can donate online for those, or you can donate right here. There's a little donation box over there.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Our next thing that's going to happen next month is Earth Month, and there's Earth Week, and so there will be some activities for Earth Week. So if you've signed up, and if you haven't signed up, please do, so that we can contact you and let you know what is happening, what some of our future presentations will be. Also, when we have a tour of the rescue. All right, thank you.